on a roll. Reality hits. Auburn, you play Kentucky. You know Kentucky's still Kentucky. It doesn't matter. Tennessee went out, got a nice big win. We also saw South Carolina lose another to LSU. We got Doug Dean in Birmingham, Franz in Gainesville, GatorBeatMedia.com. So in the next hour, we're going to cover a lot. So get your pens and papers handy. And remember, today is a great day to get out to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, or order online, hewlettandunn.com. Over 7,000 pairs of boots. And Brendan, we're going to find out what's the difference in a hat. Guy in Texas, guy in Oklahoma, a guy in the Deep South. We're going to find out about that with the help of Charles and Laura Hall at Hewlett & Dunn. We'll be right back.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, look, SEC basketball, it's getting, Brendan, I'll tell you what I'm noticing. Fans, I mean, I'm one of them, get just as mad now after the basketball losses as you do the football losses. When you start doing that, to me, that's indicative of basketball is up here, way up the food chain compared to where it used to be in terms of importance. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think that we're seeing a little bit of a changing of interest, and when look, when your team starts to play well, when things start to happen, you want them to continue. We've got this guy right here, Mr. Doug Dean, joining us this morning. I will bring him into the studio. Good morning, Doug.
Morning, guys.
Hey, Doug, I will say this. Welcome to the Monday morning President's Day edition of Sidelines. But you're right last week. You were very, wary of Kentucky, and you're smart. And I was too. I'm like, they're still Kentucky. If you've ever shot a cottonmouth or a rattlesnake, don't go over and grab them right after you shoot them. They can still bite you and inject venom for about 24 hours. They're still Kentucky. And when they decide to get their act together, they're fairly dangerous. A lot of distractions. Game day was in Auburn and all like that. But it boiled down to Kentucky just played a hell of a lot better. But what was your take?
Yeah, it is disappointing. And I will say this. For some reason this morning, as relates to what were the surprises and the wild variability of being able to pick games, and even games that are at home sometimes. My God, South Carolina beat, am I right, both Tennessee and Kentucky on the road, at least one of those two.
Yeah.
And South Carolina's a good team, but I don't necessarily think they're Elite Eight material. But if you look at the variability and the unpredictability, just when you start declaring which game day did Saturday, and after all, it was going to be in the Neville where Auburn was 13-0. But when I saw that Auburn was 8-point favorite against Big Blue Nation, I said, you ever get that you don't have a lot of data to back it up, but you just get this queasy feeling in your stomach. That's what I was getting. Yeah. That's what I was getting Saturday. Not that I thought Auburn couldn't play with them. They end up holding Kentucky to 70. You're supposed to win that at home. And that was a few days after Auburn dropped 101 on a very good South Carolina team. But here's the metaphor. I think both of y'all may be movie buffs just enough, or have just enough length in the tooth to remember the great movie War Games.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy. I forgot who the whole cast was, but what finally saved the world from a nuclear holocaust when they got there and Broderick said, keep playing these different games. and they put tic-tac-toe in the machine, and it was about to go to DEFCON 1, and we have a nuclear holocaust. And the machine kept playing, and finally it just blew a circuit. And then the computer Joshua said about tic-tac-toe, a strange game. The only way to win is not to play. And so with March Madness coming along, we're all going to fill out a bracket. I am not going to play this field for anything meaningful. Then UConn got knocked off yesterday. Am I right? FAU got. It was a bloody weekend for quite a few teams. Meanwhile, I wouldn't bet against Florida right now. I wouldn't bet against Kentucky making a pretty deep run. Who the hell knows at this point?
Would you like to play a game?
Yeah,
I think that was the computer, the Whopper, I believe it was, which was early on
Whopper.
AI. If we wanted to really break it down, I know
That's what
the
it was.
movie very well, and one of my favorites of all time.
Oh, great movie.
Doug, you mentioned Florida. Hasn't Florida won 7 straight SEC games, men's basketball?
Well, your producer would be the one to answer that.
Yeah, they're closing in on top 25 according to Franz Beard's article this morning in GatorBaitMedia.com.
So well, all right, Doug, Auburn looks like they have.
Going, Rob, real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but some games you want to. I don't think that game was an ugly loss, other than the fact that it was a loss at home.
Yeah,
but you hold Kentucky to 70. It's an 11-point loss. Auburn dropped to 7th ranking in the Ken Palm, which is pretty sporty. But the big event Saturday was Jalen Williams going out injured, and thank God, not for my selfish desire to win a bunch of games in March Madness. That's always there, but for Jalen Williams, as many games as he's played, is all he's done for Auburn. Great news coming out that it's not a season-ending knee injury, and Auburn has a bye this Wednesday. I don't think he'll be back for Saturday at Georgia. We'll see, but he should be back maybe by SEC tourney time.
Yeah, and when he went off the court, he didn't look like he was in horrible pain, but you always worry about somebody's knee. And good news on that one. His record since he's been at Auburn, Jalen Williams, he's as a player 106-27. He's the winningest player in Auburn basketball history. So, Doug, I'm going to throw this one at you. Auburn has 2 speeds: fast-paced and sometimes panic. And they start just throwing up. And, it's like when something's not working, you start panicking, going, okay, what do I do? You're rattling. We've all been there. But you know what? And last week, Jason Caldwell, you said this, Auburn fans panicked after the Florida loss. It's just not how this stuff works. Bruce Pearl is almost like a player himself, and Steven and that whole staff, Ira Bowman, the whole staff up. But what about the guard situation for Auburn? What do you see there that makes you think, okay, they can figure that riddle out?
Well, we're approaching the point in the season where you kind of – there can be some improvement, and some of that will come from coaches that know what they're doing, sort of changing the amount of minutes the key player, the scorers get, for example. And Bruce is getting – a fair amount of criticism from our own fan base. It tickles me that Bruce Pearl gets any criticism because our arena was on an Indian burial ground before Bruce Pearl arrived. Yeah. But fans will be fans. So, but we're approaching the point in the season where you are who you are, right? Yeah. You are who you are. And Auburn's guards, I think at times, Trey Donaldson can be very effective. But we saw it at Florida. We saw it Saturday against Kentucky. When they come up against long, athletic, quick guards and quick anybody, that's going to cause Auburn problems. That's Auburn's Achilles heel. But you look at this March Madness field. If you want to call UConn or Houston or Purdue, dominant, have at it. But my rebuttal will be to show you how they got inexplicably beat several times and how this field, show me the matchups, show me who gets the seeding and the round 2 matchup, even some round 1 matchups that teams are going to show up and knock you off. But I think Auburn could go out the second round that first weekend, just like a year ago, we're vulnerable to the right kind of team with the right lineup, with the right athleticism. We could also get hot at the right time and have our best shooters like Jalen and even Broom from outside and work in the paint. Auburn is capable of making a Sweet 16 run. And to me, in this field, if you can get to the Sweet 16, that's all you can ask. At that point, it's start flipping a coin as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's about matchups, but then it's about matchups on game day. That's the most important when people talk about matchups. I mean, you look at what Bruce Pearl has done. He's made Auburn basketball relevant. In his 10th year, they're always in the topic of conversation. One Final Four trip, been to the Sweet 16. You'd like to see more. Look at Kentucky. That's a program with more talent probably than anybody in the SEC. But they can't get it together. Look at a program like Memphis. How much longer are Memphis fans going to put up with Penny? I don't care if he played at Memphis or not. That's a horrible coaching job. 13 of the 14 guys on the roster this year are brand new. They got just curb stomped by SMU yesterday, both of them with the same record. You know who I think would be a great coach if Memphis makes a change? The man on Lakeshore Drive, Bucky McMillan.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly going to get a look from somebody, maybe not that level of program. But I would add, too, maybe this is unfair, Stackhouse at Vanderbilt. I mean, he's had trouble keeping players there, Rob, and Vanderbilt is a fairly proud basketball tradition.
They do.
So it's interesting who's on the hot seats. There'll be several on the hot seat. I'll tell you another one that's going to be on the hot seat. I think he'll leave on his own is Musselman at Arkansas.
Yeah. That's a disaster. I'll just say this. We've got several friends of ours whose kids are in school at Arkansas or just graduated, and they've been telling me for the last year and a half what's been going on over there. I'm not going to get into it on this show, but it wrecked the program, and I think Musselman is so distraught. I mean, and Arkansas has a great basketball tradition. So, it's a mess. But, Doug, let's talk a little football right now. Auburn spring practice coming up. We need the ticker. Brendan, can we get the ticker that goes under the screen to keep up with the roster of all? Because
I think that's every school in the SEC right now.
I'm being silly.
Golly.
It's everybody. Yeah, it's like somebody while we're talking maybe in the portal. But what is Hugh Freeze? You know what I think he did? I think when he came into Auburn, he was told, "Okay, keep this guy, keep that guy." That's just how that stuff goes. You've got to try to have some continuity. There's a couple of guys at Auburn. Kent Austin. I watched that guy in high school play with Jimmy Hockaday from Brentwood Academy. They beat MUS 38-7 in the playoffs in Memphis. And Kent is the trusted confidant of Hugh Freeze. I think you're going to start seeing the real Hugh Freeze. When everybody's mad about, 4th and 31, we know about that. But you know what? You can't let the same play beat you again and again and again. I think this staff he's putting together is much more reflective of what Hugh Freeze is capable of. Doug, you agree?
Yeah, well, I think, I would like to hope that some of our influential boosters or whoever, I don't think it was John Cohen. He's a baseball guy. Now, Cohen possibly being in his first year with making the most important coaching hire of his career, arguably, he may have listened to someone that had strong opinions that happened to be a billionaire. You know how that goes. Only Auburn bestows coaching decision-making authority on people correlating with, your balance sheet, your net worth.
Yeah.
But suppose that did happen, and there was an opinion that they wanted Hugh Freeze to have some really veteran coordinators. Okay, Hugh didn't have much leverage. He wanted the Auburn job. But I would hope now, and I believe now, if you look at who he's hired and how this has gone, if that was the case, that's not the case now. And what I think you've got a chance, especially I love the Charles Kelly hire, and there's controversy around Durkin, but no one is disputing does he know how to coach defense. They're just different opinions about his unfortunate, tragic time at Maryland. But I think the word that comes to mind for me is comfortable. I think you'll see Hugh Freeze comfortable with his staff. comfortable that they all get the vision. They'll deploy what Hugh Freeze tells them to, and I don't think there's going to be. And I left out Derek Nix. I think it's going to be hand in glove how this staff works together. Now they need that because they're going to be overcoming very likely some talent deficits at defensive front. Possibly depends on how many of these guys work out and how rapidly some of these great signees can develop. And then there's the big question, obviously, is going to be Peyton Thorne. There's no evidence that Freeze is going to bring another quarterback in. So you're going to see in spring probably Walker White. He's coming in early. Walker White, Peyton Thorne, maybe Hank Brown, because he showed some flashes in that unfortunate bowl game. But I think when the dust settles, you'll see Peyton Thorne start. So the question is going to be, with that stable of running backs and improved wide receivers, at least on paper, can they just improve by a couple of games from last year? And then, if they do, 2025 is the season. You get Alabama and Georgia at home, and then you have the benefit of a 12-team playoff. So some really big things are achievable just because of the architecture of college football changing.
Yeah. Doug, what's happening, and Brendan and I talked about it a lot last week. You've had Jeff Hafley leave Boston College to take a position coach. Chip Kelly bailed at UCLA because, the state of California is broke or close to it, and NIL money is hard to come by, believe it or not, at UCLA. Other coaches have left. The Georgia State head coach, 2 days into spring practice. I'm out of here. I'm going to South Carolina. Do you see this? This is what I predict is going to happen. We're going to start seeing more head coaches say, I'm out of here. I've already got 15, 20 million in the bank. I'll go take a position coach in the NFL, not have to re-recruit my team, deal with the portal, NIL, because I absolutely believe Nick Saban, a day or two after he got back from the Michigan loss, had a bunch of guys coming in his office talking about not how do I get better as a cornerback or a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. I want a better deal, and if you don't give it to me, I'm leaving. I think he said, screw y'all, I'm out of here. I think we're going to end up with a bunch of 28-year-old coaches with little to no experience taking over college football programs, and we're going to start going from $6 million a year and $10 million a year to $600,000. It's going to be back like it was 30 years ago in terms of salaries.
I don't think that scenario – it won't be widespread at all the top 20 or 30 teams, but I don't think that scenario is impossible. It sounds radical to make that big a reversal. But, Coach Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, and they don't need my opinions, but I'm just speaking like most fans would. He's been stung by this. His offensive coordinator, Grubb, going to the NFL, taking the offensive line coach with him. And I'm sure DeBoer would not have preferred that. He promotes his, the tight ends coach or wide receivers coach to offensive coordinator. Yeah. So, Alabama's got the roster. They should be able to win 10 games just by Colin Powell's doctrine of overwhelming force, right? But but then when they get in those, what Bama fans want is not 9 or 10 wins. They want to be undefeated or just one loss and be sitting pretty in the playoff. Can they do that? I think it'll be interesting to watch because it's approaching the point where Kalen DeBoer's pedigree is kind of unassailable. He's proven a lot in a few years, but remains to be seen. Can he be seamless in the transition when you've had that kind of disruption of the brain trust coming from Washington? And then, but who's got hands down, Rob and Brendan, which head coach enters this season with by far the most pressure?
Which head coach?
Which head coach?
Oh, well, obviously you say Billy Napier.
No, I'm not thinking SEC. That Billy Napier's on the hot seat. To me, Ryan Day.
Oh, yeah. Nationally, Ryan Day. Yeah.
They have, and I should have been clearer. I mean, all of football.
Okay.
But they've handed him all the help you could ask for, the biggest salary cap in college football. If he were an NFL team, it's like they got 8 first-round draft picks and everybody else got none. So, what can he do? Because you can't lose to Michigan 3 straight years and really have no hardware to show recently and survive very long. But meanwhile, he brings in a fellow head coach, Chip Kelly, as OC. And I mean, either that'll work brilliantly or it won't work at all. I don't know if there's a lot of middle ground.
Well, I'm going to throw this one at you guys. Chip Kelly, 4 straight BCS bowls at Oregon, goes to the NFL. Remember the Monday Night Football game against the Washington Redskins? Oh, my God, look at him. He's going to dominate, conquer football. A couple of games in, every team in the NFL had tape on him. That didn't last long. He goes to UCLA. He leaves before he gets fired. If you cannot have an offense that runs between the tackles in the NFL, you don't make it. He's going to bring that same gimmicky offense to the Big Ten. It's not going to work. And I'm with you. Ohio State had defeated Michigan 15 out of 16 years until these last 3 years. And none of that matters because the only Big Ten games that Ryan Day has lost as a head coach at Ohio State have been the 3 to Michigan. And he ran Jim Harbaugh out. That's just my take on it. Doug, and that's a good question. Ryan Day has everything in the world going for him in terms of money, salary, everything like that. But he's a whiny little baby. I mean, he wanted to go after Lou Holtz because he questioned the toughness of his team. Well, Lou Holtz has a right to do that, doesn't he?
He does. And, I'm not a Ryan Day hater.
I'm not either.
I found it puzzling. I don't know the guy very well. I know someone who works with the 49ers and and that was a long time ago, but when Day was on staff there and got to observe the guy and was very unimpressed that he just didn't, in terms of interpersonal connections with people, he was lacking. Maybe he's grown since then. But these, and by the way, I think you need to watch, similar to Ryan Day being promoted from within, watch Michigan's moves. I think that it's been the fashionable thing to say is to applaud Michigan promoting the offensive coordinator. But I think it's going to be bumpy, and maybe it would be bumpy if you had a coaching search and hired a big name. We've seen it over and over, and it may happen at Alabama. The rivals of Alabama are wishing for nothing less. The disruption of changing legendary coach, a big name coach, a big persona. It leaves a big shadow there, and nature abhors a vacuum, guys. And so that vacuum can be, there's some power to be distributed. Are you going to have boosters meddling? Are you going to have assistant coaches jockeying for bigger promotions? Sometimes it adds up to a couple or 3 years of chaos and disruption.
Doug, that is a brilliant series of points. I totally agree with you. Nature abhors a vacuum. And I'll say this too. College football, you know what thrives as a head coach in college football in today's world? An alpha male. Betas don't cut it. Gus Malzahn is a beta. Get rid of the Mr. Rogers sweater vest, okay? You're not your players' friends. My kids tell me, you've got 3, I've got 4 now, Doug. I mean, they don't like us, but they love us. I mean, you and your wife have done an unbelievable job with your 3 kids because you spend a lot of time with them. Jim Harbaugh won at Michigan because he was afraid to think and speak outside the box. And Kirby Smart, whatever. I don't know how long Kirby's going to want to put up with this at Georgia. You keep hearing all these rumors, Arthur Blank and Bernie Marcus and the Home Depot. There's so much money in Atlanta. We don't talk about it much. I just got back. I've been gone for 9 days in Knoxville, Charlotte, Atlanta. Doug, there's a ton of money in Birmingham. There's a lot of money, but you got to have a dominant personality as a coach, and they can overcome any inefficiencies, I believe. Throw in some talent, watch out.
We're talking football, and for your Auburn listeners, all 5 of them, let me give you an off-the-beaten-path player to watch heading into – I think he might not arrive until fall camp. But right here at Alabaster, Thompson High School, which has been a major championship program until Patrick Nix's Central Phoenix team knocked Thompson off to win the title this past year. The player I have in mind is Caleb Harris, and I talked to his head coach, Mark Freeman. A little bit controversial figure, the way he brings talent in, but I was impressed with him, and he would not shut up about what a headhunter Caleb Harris is. and he would be a little slow if he's playing safety, but he's not going to play safety. Needs to be at the nickel or star position. And he said that this guy he was the best leader we've had in that program since Freeman has been there. And he thinks that Hugh Freeze has got a guy that's going to just really be a headhunter. He invoked, and you can chuckle if you want, but, coaches like hyperbole. He invoked the name Jack Lambert when talking about how this guy loves to lay the wood and hit people. So that's my player to keep an eye on heading into this summer.
Well, no, look, I'll say this. Watching high school football in Alabama, there's always been a debate. Best high school football in the state. Mobile, Baldwin County, Jefferson, Shelby County. What say you, as Bill O'Reilly says?
Oh, wow. I think it's going to be a little different vote on that year by year. But I will say this, man, there are very few years I can remember, even though their population is a fraction of, greater Birmingham area and Shelby County. There have been very few years you didn't see elite football players come out of South Alabama. So, I mean, I don't care whether you're Alabama, LSU, Auburn, to some extent Georgia, you've got to have a presence in Mobile area because they're going to have players. And it's something about, I don't know, they just seem to – they get great coaching and they play a more ferocious brand of football down there at times. I've probably just insulted parts of Jefferson and Shelby County. But now then there'll be other years where the player – well, just look at the wide receiver class. Ryan Williams, Perry Thompson, both out of South Alabama. So it's going to shift year to year. And I'll tell you, since you brought up Mobile and Birmingham, what I think is going to be interesting to watch with DeBoer, Saban started recruiting nationally, and it worked for them. But there comes a point where you better have a strong flavor of your in-state talent because, like the SEC says, it just means more when you play an Iron Bowl. So I'll be interested to see, Hugh Freeze has pretty much split the top talent signing in Alabama. Will that make a difference over time? We shall see.
I think it will. I think it's a lot harder to quit if you live right there in Alabama or a border state. I mean, there's a lot of states that border Alabama versus a kid from California. You can quit and just disappear. You know how many kids have been entered into the transfer portal in football since December 5th? 2,437. I'd like to know what those numbers were prior to the portal when it came on October 15th of 2018. Another one, Doug, and stay on if you can. Franz Beard's going to join us from GatorBaitMedia.com, and love having you on anytime you're available. You're exactly what my friend Dan Barron, who just left to take over the New Orleans radio group down in New Orleans, said. Your best writers, your best guests are your writers because they think about what they're saying because they've written it. And by the way, your compilation of statistics in the AU dose the other day, I was reading, I always read it, about the every national champion in basketball, college, since 2002 has been in the top 40 in one category, top 25 in the other. Talk about that real quick. And Franz is a basketball junkie like you are. So, but I want to hear that, Doug.
Yeah. What's up, Franz?
Hello. How's life in the big city?
Go Gator. I don't think I've seen France since Florida disassembled my Auburn Tigers, and y'all are showing a pulse in basketball.
Do you know something? They would be better than they are right now, except you're all five starters began their college careers somewhere else. Will Richards started at Belmont, Zion Pullen at Cal Riverside, Walter Clayton Jr. at Iona, Tyrese Samuel at Seton Hall, and Micah Hanlongton at Marshall. And then you got Riley Kugel, who technically started his career here, but he signed with Mississippi State and came here after that Mississippi State fired Ben Howland. So, it takes time. I don't think people understand the amount of chemistry that it takes to be really, really an elite team. And they're finally getting there. And I think the biggest reason they're getting there is because I don't know that there's a better point guard in the country than Zion Pullen.
He's good.
I really don't.
He's good. And you know what else? I think you got the right basketball coach now. I really do.
He is. Bruce Pearl's talking to Patrick Young and Kenny Cross and me. Bruce Pearl says he's going to be a legend. He said 10 years from now, you're going to be talking about your head coach is a legend. And, you know, the thing about it is we better get some of that SEC cash that's coming in from ESPN and set it aside because we're going to need it to hold on to him.
Something about the Florida Gator basketball brand. It's like you have to have a coach that looks like he just started shaving about a month ago. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Billy Donovan and man, you talk about some runway. If Golden is who I think he is, man, you can have him there a while because you can do anything you want at Florida. They've done it before. I was going to ask you, Franz, if you agree with me, and I use the example of the movie War Games at the end. The only way to beat that computer and stop a nuclear holocaust, you remember the movie?
Yes, I do.
Is to not play the game. And this March Madness field, I mean, I'm going to chuckle at the so-called experts that start presenting their Final Four and their bracket because I'll know that they're wrong. And this just looks like a year where there will be a 1 seed that gets to the Final Four. I don't think there'll be 2 or 3. And I think this field is like just throw darts at it to pick your bracket. Do you agree?
Oh, I definitely do. Did you happen to watch Ohio State and Purdue yesterday?
Yeah.
Ohio State had the perfect solution for Zach Edey. I mean, he's 7'4" and he's 280 pounds, but they don't have any shooters. You know, they just chuck it up on the rim and say, well, Zach will come get it and clean it all up. But at some point in time, as you know, from covering basketball as long as you have and from coaching it, you can figure out a way to defend that. You can figure out a way. You know, I'm big on the Dennis Rodman philosophy of rebounding, which is you rebound with your eyes and your feet. Your eyes follow the ball, your feet go where your eyes look. But with Edey, you got to body up on him. He's just so massive that you have to. And what they did was they said, okay, we'll make a sandwich out of him, and we'll take our chances that some of these scud battery captains will keep throwing it up there. I'll tell you what, they were, Purdue was like Saddam Hussein's Scud missile crew. You know, they couldn't even land one in the ocean if they'd been standing on the end of the pier. And that's funny. And but there's a way to beat them. Almost every single team out there that's a high seed, you got a way to beat them. You really do have a way to beat them. I think right now, and I think a lot of people are going to be shocked when I tell them, the 2 best teams in the country right now are UConn, and I don't think that's even close because I think they can play so many ways and they pass the ball better than anybody. And the second best team in the country, and I hate to say it because, gosh, I just hate to say good things about Tennessee, but Tennessee is probably the second best team in the country right now. They've got ways to beat you. And that's what it takes when you get to the NCAA tournament. You've got to have ways to beat you. If I take this away from you, okay, I got plan B, plan C, and they are all good.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother you that UConn went down yesterday?
What's that?
It doesn't bother you that doesn't shake your faith in UConn that they fell on Sunday?
UConn fell on Sunday? They beat Marquette by about 50.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, my bad. It was Purdue that fell yesterday.
Purdue, yes.
Yeah.
Purdue.
Yeah. Yeah, let me throw something at you for both of y'all. I mean, Purdue every year, Doug and Franz, you see it. And Edie's been there for 4 years, maybe 5, and he's not getting a
10.
look from the NBA. I'll start with you, Doug. And they showed Gene Keady out there in the crowd last weekend at the Purdue Indiana game. But Purdue is the dominant basketball program in the state of Indiana, and they don't do anything in the NCAA tournament compared to the talent that they should have, and they're always ranked in the top 2 or 3 in the country. Doug, what's I mean, that's just an example of what you just said. There are a lot of teams that could get hot in March and have a deep run in the tournament. Last year, who went out to Vegas before the season, other than maybe Frank Duffy, the Dufter, if he went out and took Florida Atlantic and San Diego State to make the Final Four? That's where we are in basketball now, Doug.
It is, and you can say that to a degree that's unpredictable. It upsets what happens. You can say that every year. What I'm trying to say is what I've watched this college basketball season.
Yeah,
and Franz is probably right. Maybe UConn stands in a class all by itself if you're going to start talking about someone who looks like a lock to make the Final Four. I think once you get any Final Four, you have to quit using the term a lock. I mean, once in a while, there's a team that looks like they're invincible, but something funny about the Final Four. 1-game elimination, fouls happen, injuries happen. So I just think this year, the people that pick their bracket and go heavy on, 12 and even 13 seeds early will be rewarded for that, if I had to guess.
What is it, Franz, along the lines of what Doug just said? You've got a lot of those teams like San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, that have played together for 3 or 4 years. I think that's the big thing. Look at Memphis. 13 of the 14 players on Penny Hardaway's roster at Memphis this year are brand new, and he's got his kids playing. And I don't know how big I am about having your own kids on your team if you're a coach. I mean, my deal is stay out of politics and stay in production. But both of y'all really know basketball, and you're both making great cases if you were arguing a case before a judge and a jury about if your team gets hot at the right time, you can go really deep in this tournament. And maybe UConn is the one shoe-in if there's – and there's no such thing as a shoe-in. But I think it's creating a lot more interest in college basketball. Duke, North Carolina, they're both good, but are they – elite? Are any of these teams out there that y'all are seeing, especially let's say North Carolina, Duke, that's the greatest rivalry in college basketball?
Go ahead, Franz.
I don't think North Carolina or Duke is now they could make the Final Four. Oh, there's no question about it. I think there's 30 teams out there, and the only 2 teams I'd say that have a really strong chance to make the Final Four. And I'm not saying they're going to either one. UConn and Tennessee. They have the strongest chance to make the Final Four. But I think there's 30 teams out there that can make the Final Four this year. And Memphis is not one of them.
Yeah.
Memphis may be the 7th best team in the American Athletic Conference, which it may shock some people, especially Penny Hardaway. I still, it boggles my mind that he didn't get lit up by the NCAA and banned forever. I mean, or the Tennessee High School Association, and on and on and on and on. I mean, I'm not a Penny fan at all. But you look at yesterday, South Florida is now 12-1 in the American Conference, and they play like a bunch of heathens out there. I mean, they just get out there, they're running all over the place that it's like 40 minutes of organized chaos when they play. That's a team that you get into the tournament, it's one and done, and you may have a day to prepare for them. Okay, they get their first round game. Round 2, you got 1 day to prep for them. And I don't know that you can prep for a team that plays like that in a really strong sense in one day. And this is what really separates teams in the NCAA tournament. This is why I say you get these teams that have multiple ways to beat you, and you got a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug,
and then stating the obvious, and I got to go, Rob, seeding, SEED, is huge, as everyone knows. And I don't mean, that do you get a 1 or 2 seed or not, but you look at a year ago, that was a decent team, a capable team Bruce Pearl had, but we knew they had flaws. And once again, it was guard play. Wendell Green was good, but he was vulnerable. He didn't have any height, so teams could cause him problems. But Auburn's biggest problem a year ago was being a 9 seed. So great, you managed to get by Iowa. Guess who's next up? 1 seed Houston.
Yeah.
And that's asking too much. So, I'll probably contradict myself saying there'll be a lot of upsets. When you look at the SEC, I'll be most interested in which SEC teams: Tennessee, Alabama, potentially Auburn, potentially Florida, Kentucky. We'll see what happens in the SEC tourney. Those that can eke out at least a 5 seed or better, then they're going to have they'll be in the hunt the first weekend. And like I said, if you get to the Sweet 16, then it's like just put them all in a hat, and you've got to totally hit the reset button and reevaluate matchups and all of that. You'll see some of the top 4 teams get high seeding, but some of them will get knocked out in Sweet 16.
Doug, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you got to go. Yeah. Now,
You got to watch that 7-10, because 7, 8, 9, 10, those are always, no matter the bracket, those are always the 4 closest matched teams.
Yeah.
And they're always, you always have a chance for the upset at the next level coming out of that group.
There you
7,
go.
8, 9, 10. Yeah.
Take care, guys.
All right, Doug, thanks so much, man. Doug Dean down in Birmingham. Love having him on. Franz, this is what I love about it. And Brendan, you're hearing this discussion, but we're covering a lot. But I can tell you, living in Memphis, you can't help but follow Memphis basketball. And you look at a train wreck like that with all, but the talent, there's a ton of basketball talent that comes out of Memphis. I mean, it always has been, but you've had problems with the dads of a player or just the local followers just trying to tell them where to play players. That always happens. That's why I think it's very difficult to be a coach and have your own kids. I know how, obviously, we love our own kids. I have 4 of them. I mean, but coaching them and showing the same toughness that you do to every other player, you better get that right. Because if they detect any hint of favoritism, it's over. The chain of command is broken. You got to be as tough on them as you do on others. I said this about Dion at Colorado, and our Boulder expert who lived in Littleton, Colorado, not Boulder.
Not
his
Boulder.
Father, Buddy, was living out there and sports editor of the Denver Post.
Hung out in Boulder.
But Brendan, you make a great point. I mean, and this is what I said. Name me a player other than Travis Hunter from Sewanee, Georgia, Collins Hill High School, which is just north of Atlanta. It's where the Falcons training complex is, and Shadur and Shiloh Sanders. Other than those 3, name me another player on that Colorado team. It became everything about his kids. It's very difficult to do. I want to ask you. Okay, John Smith.
Don't do this to
I don't
Franz,
know if there's a John Smith there, but everybody's got a John Smith.
Yeah. All right. So let me throw it at you. Looking at college basketball now, you can turn it around so quickly with the portal. And I didn't know that, Franz, and thank you. That was an awesome. You must be taking some supplements for the brain. Your brain is unbelievable to pull off. Florida had no players that start on the team right now started their careers at Florida. That's the world that we live in. Get those kind of supplements I'm going to throw this in. The Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. New location opening in Oxford, Mississippi this week. We're going to hopefully be down there March 2nd. They get that set up. March 2nd at the Vitamin Shop in Oxford, Mississippi. All the supplements that you need, shot blocks, goo, probiotics, energy, recovery. They have specialists there. You don't get the blank stare. They know what they're doing. And also, it's weird. A month from now, you will start seeing the planting begin all over the country. Farmers, especially in the South, houseindustriesinc.com, Cherry Valley, Arkansas. They make the better roller, the pulverizer, the better chopper. They make the aerators for the catfish farms. We are really proud and blessed to have Chad House and the great employees there as sponsors of Sidelines. All right, friends, let's start doing some quick Q&A. I'm going to throw this at you. UConn, the best team in the country. Give me your other 4 right now, because when Franz Beard speaks, it's like E.F. Hutton. People listen. You're E.F. Beard.
I've got UConn and Tennessee, I believe, are the 2 best teams in the country. I think that they have more ways to beat you. They can adjust. Okay, you want to play half court, fine. You want to run, fine. They can all do that. My third team out there that is going to surprise you, I think, and that is Kentucky. And the reason I say that is they have Final Four talent. The way they played against Arkansas, they played like a Final Four team. And this was without their best player, Trey Mitchell, who is out for a couple more ball games with a shoulder injury. When Trey Mitchell's in there, it's a totally different dynamic.
You mean against Auburn?
They're a team capable of playing a lot of different styles. They're also the best shooting team in the country. They got more guys that can put the ball in the basket than anybody, including Reed Sheppard, who is the best freshman in the country, bar none.
Yeah.
I mean, that kid, he's almost a robot. He is so, it's so the right decision, the right shot, the right this, the right. You keep saying, screw up just once. Let me see you screw up one time. And he doesn't do it.
Franz, you know what you're saying? You're right, though. This is not a 100-yard dash or a 200 or a 400 sprint like in track and field. This is a triathlon. And I'm telling you right now, you can have a great swim and a crappy bike, and it's going to make it more difficult to win. You're going to have an incredible run. That's how basketball. You've got November. The month of November is like the witness protection program. Carlton, the doorman from the old Rhoda show. People don't really pay attention, but it matters because the habits that you develop in November and you play some tough games, they're going to go with you in December. And then you get into January, February, and March, and early April. Kentucky, damn it, they're still a blue blood. And they're one of these programs, if you play for Kentucky, you're like the child of a billionaire, tremendous wealth. You've got an incentive-based trust. So once you quit smoking weed and laying around fraternity house or 8 years of college and you're still a sophomore, once you focus, anything, you'll start getting money from the trust. That's Kentucky basketball. That's who they are. Yeah.
4 7-footers. Okay.
Wait, 4 on the Kentucky team?
Yeah, they got 4. 4 7-footers, 3 great shooters, and they got a freshman point guard in DJ Wagner, who I'm not sold on him for consistency, but I know this about him. He has it in him to play, to go into comas when he just does everything. And Reed Sheppard can go into a shooter's coma. And a shooter's coma means that you are totally unconscious. Anything you throw up is going in. And Reed Sheppard can do that. Antonio Reeves is another one. Dillingham is another. Dillingham's another one.
Of course.
I get that way. Francis and I play horse, and then I just start draining them from everywhere. It really upsets him. I'm good like that. I'm
going to throw one to both of y'all because this is right. I mean, Brendan, you've got a daughter playing soccer and all the sports, and my kids played all the sports. And,
Just
one thing, we all used to play outside basketball. Everybody had a basketball goal in their driveway growing up. When you go through neighborhoods nowadays, you don't see it. That's why we're not developing the great shooters. I mean, if Joe Dean were alive today with Tom Hammond doing the SEC Game of the Week, how often would we hear him say these two things? And I say them as only he could say them. A little string music from Barry Goheen, downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Or, someone like Shaquille O'Neal, Stufferino. I mean, it's pretty much Stufferino and a three. But how many guys are averaging 25 points a game as shooting guards in today's world? The game, it's so different. And if you've got a ton of talented players, you know what you got to worry about now? Do the losses hurt like they used to? Remember the great line in the song from Hank Jr., hangovers hurt more than they used to, and cornbread and iced tea took the place of pills and 90 proof. These kids today, when they lose a college game, if they're making $200,000 or $300,000 a year in NIL, does it hurt? It hurts the fans twice. It hurts because their team lost, and a lot of them are giving NIL money for a crappy product.
Does it hurt? Franz, I just feel like it. Look, I don't think you get to this level and you don't want to compete. I was watching a bunch of Jordan stuff this weekend where they're doing a lot of those old videos, and I just think he was talking about Kobe and just all the great rivalries, and one of the greatest games they ever played was a pickup game with all those guys when they're on the Olympic team. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like you want to compete. You got to want to compete to get to that level. I mean, I think we'd see more of the pros just sort of like, yeah, that's no big deal. You see the pros get upset if they don't win. I mean, we watched even Super Bowl. So I guess to some degree, I hear what you're saying, Rob, but I think they care because that also affects if they get drafted, how great or not played, regardless of the money that they're making.
Well, I worry about a lot of them looking at their own stat sheets is what I'm saying. When you just look at the pain. It used to be a college kid. Y'all brought this up about Tim Tebow when he was in tears in the 2009 loss to Alabama in the SEC championship game. It meant something to him. And he put the Gator team on his shoulders and did everything he did. He had help. I mean, but I don't know Tim Tebow, but that's a team player. I think about players. You pick the school. I want the guy. You know what Lou Holtz said? In 1986, because a friend of mine played on that first Notre Dame team he had. He was a starting center, played for the Steelers. And he said, I went into the locker room, and we went 6-5 that first year after a loss. And I didn't see a bunch of players, upset, in tears, smashing their lockers, just, mad as hell. But I did see one over in the corner of the locker room, sobbing uncontrollably in tears. And he talked about, that guy was from Chicago and they didn't have a weight room at his school. He used to lift manhole covers. Chris Zorich, remember the nose guard from Notre Dame on the 1988 national championship team? But Lou Holtz said, give me a locker room full of guys that care, that bleed and fight and care about each other. I'll win national championships. But if I got a bunch of guys that it doesn't bother them to lose, we'll never be successful. Franz.
Well, here's what I will tell you. Guys care, first and foremost. They really do. But the second thing is this. Dean Smith altered basketball in so many ways, but the biggest way he altered it was consistently putting out 5 guys that shared the basketball, that moved it around. Instead of having that team that had the one dominant scorer, all of a sudden you had 5 guys that could beat you because they were capable of going off on that night for points. Do you know Michael Jordan, the only coach that ever held him under 20 points a game was Dean Smith.
That is a great question. There's your soundbite, Brendan.
And the only reason that happened is because they shared the basketball. The ball got everybody. You look at that first national championship team that Dean Smith had, which was, I believe, 82. And you had Sam Perkins, and you had Matt Doherty, James Worthy, Jimmy Black, Michael Jordan. That's your starting five. They, between them, James Worthy didn't average 20 a game. Sam Perkins didn't average 20 a game. Florida's 2006 and 2007 teams, vastly underrated. I think they could have beaten any team in the last 40 years that I've seen. I think they were capable of beating them. In 2007, you know who the leading scorer was? Torian Green averaged 13 a game.
Yeah, you did a story on that the other day, Franz. Franz, we only had a little while left with you, and I just wanted to get your take. You wrote an article this morning about Florida approaching the top 25. I wanted you to sort of talk about how the Gators, since we're focusing on the Gators today, how they're going to fare. Do you think they're going to end up here in the next couple of weeks?
They got 6 games remaining, 2 of them with Vanderbilt. I think those are wins. They got Missouri, another one. I think Missouri is going to do a reverse run of the table and go as Jethro Bodine would say, 0-18, okay? That's 3 wins right there, 21. That would put Florida at 11 SEC wins, okay? That's pretty darn good. That leaves you a home and home with Alabama and a game with South Carolina in Columbia. Personally, I think South Carolina's been exposed. I think that's the 4th win. The win in Tuscaloosa, I don't know anybody who beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They shoot the ball so well there. But as we learn about college basketball, you can be a terrific shooting team at home, but you might be a pretty average shooting team when you get on the road. And, you get your own fans behind you. The defense is easier to play and everything. And that's what it's going to take. Florida gets Alabama on Senior Day, and that means we're going to be honoring Tyrese Samuel. Means we're going to be honoring Zion Pullen. And that's going to be an emotional day. And, I've seen Florida play some really good basketball on Senior Day in the past. And I think that this is going to be a telltale situation. Do I think they could go 5-1? Yes. Do I think they will? No. I think they're going to go 4-2 the rest of the way. Finish with 22 wins overall and 12 SEC wins. 12 was going to put them right on the bubble of the double bye. Now, that double bye in the SEC tournament is fabulous because you don't play till Friday. Yeah. You may be playing a team on Friday that has played consecutive nights. But whoever you play is going to have to play on a back-to-back night. This is the SEC tournament is, I think, separates the men from the boys, because even if you get the double bye, to win it, you got to go 3-0 on 3 consecutive days.
Yeah.
Holy
Friends,
and that's
I'm with you. We're about out of time. I'm going to say I like this comment by Van Der. Man, this is no longer college football. This is AAA for the NFL. We got a chance to get it back if the leadership in the SEC and the Big Ten will take bold action that only they can. Alpha male leadership. Get the betas out of the damn room, okay? Start grabbing people, throwing them up against the wall and saying, we're not putting up with this crap anymore. What was it, the Beastie Boys? We're not going to take it. We're not going to take it anymore. I tell you, one of your smartest guys, I don't know, Twisted Sister, okay. But come on now. I don't know him, but David Arnoff is he's a very smart guy, because I'll read his comments on the side of here. He thinks a lot like we do. We're going to figure this stuff out, people. I promise you that. And as y'all always say, and Buddy says, the fans own college football, own college sports. Look, another one real quick. Do yourself a favor. Go to our website. Check out all of our sponsors that support this show. We are blessed beyond belief to have them. Great listeners. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Franz, Brendan, we all know this. Go out, make something great happen today. Be an alpha, not a beta. Okay. Happy President's Day. Franz, unbelievable stuff. I'm going to read it as soon as I get off the show.
Franz,
Thanks
how does everyone find you, Franz?
Yeah.
GatorbaitMedia.com. I'm on Twitter, but I don't even know what my Twitter handle is. I mean,
X.
I have a real problem condensing everything into 240 characters. I'm sorry,
they've extended it now, Franz. It's extension. It's yes.
Franz, you need to be on Twitter.
You can go away. You can do your diatribes, go crazy all hours of night and day. You won't get banned anymore.
But, Franz, I will agree with what Brendan told me a while back. He said Franz is just writing the best. You really, I mean, I've known you now for 3 years through this show. You are writing. We don't have writers like this anymore. Okay, we've got some.
We talk about this all the time, Franz.
We do, but we've got to have great writers. Okay,
Herodotus,
488 BC in Greece. He was known for history. Herodotus. If we don't get more writers back out in the population, we're going to be a soundbite society. We need something better than that.
This killed writing because people can sit there with their thumbs. And, that's why Twitter had limited characters, because their thumbs got tired. And
we used to have towns get flooded in the Mississippi Delta up until 1927 when the levee board came along. We can always fix things. The mind of an engineer can fix anything. Okay. All right. Hey, unbelievable stuff, man. God bless. This is not work. It's just so much fun. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. Tell your friends, hit that subscribe button that Brendan talks about. Tell them how to do it, Brendan.
Yep. If you're watching on your desktop, just go down to the bottom right. You see a little YouTube icon. Click on that. It says subscribe. If you're watching on your phone, just pull that little chat area down. You slide it down. You'll see it right there. You go ahead and hit subscribe. You're watching on Facebook. Go ahead and like and follow the sidelines. If you're watching via any of those platforms, make sure you like it. You get notifications when we are live. That'll do it for us, Mr. Beard. I'll talk to you very soon. I guess downtown Rob Brown. I don't know. That's the Buddy Martin version. Oh, lots to announce this week with going on with our SEC education. We're going to be announcing all sorts of fun stuff. So.
Exactly. Yeah,
with Mr. Boudoir Martin. So, gentlemen, is that enough? Can I go now to hear from our sponsors, and we'll talk to you all later. Have a good day, everybody.
Will do.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I'm Ari Dickey.